The fastest way to waste $1,500 on a .357 Magnum lever gun is to buy the name everybody recognizes before deciding what the rifle actually needs to do. Walk into most gun shops, and the conversation usually narrows to three familiar choices: a Henry Big Boy, a Ruger-made Marlin 1894, or a Rossi R92 when the budget becomes part of the discussion. None of those rifles is automatically a mistake. The problem is that repeating the same three recommendations has created an entire category of W357 lever actions that serious buyers barely examine. Worse, some hidden gem lists cheat. They include pump-action rifles, discontinued curiosities chambered in completely different cartridges, or expensive custom conversions that no ordinary buyer can walk into a store and purchase. We are not doing that here. Every rifle on this list is a genuine lever action produced in W357 Magnum, and every position is based on the same 5 questions. How useful is it outside a photograph? How well does it handle? How easy is it to aim with modern or traditional sights? How difficult will it be to support over years of ownership, and whether the price reflects capability or simply nostalgia? There is one important ammunition point before the ranking begins. A .357 Magnum chamber can accept shorter .38 special ammunition under established ammunition interchangeability standards, but that does not guarantee every lever gun will feed every bullet profile or cartridge length equally well. The manual, the manufacturer's guidance, and testing the exact factory load in the individual rifle still matter. This is one of the first places where internet advice becomes dangerously oversimplified. The ability to practice with softer ammunition is valuable only when the rifle actually cycles it reliably, and ammunition that runs perfectly in one model may not behave identically in another. Another boundary needs to be clear. A rifle chambered in .357 Magnum can be useful for range shooting, property work, competition, and certain hunting roles, but it is not a magical substitute for every centerfire rifle. Hunting legality varies by state, species, season cartridge rules, projectile requirements, and local zone. Responsible field use also depends on the load, impact, velocity, distance, shot angle, and the shooter's actual ability. This ranking is about choosing the best ownership system, not pretending cartridge markings can replace judgment. With that settled, number 5 is the Uberti 1873 Trapper. This is the rifle for the buyer who wants the lever action experience to feel mechanical, historical, and almost theatrical every time the action opens. The Model 1873 pattern has a completely different personality from the compact Model 1892 rifles that dominate the modern pistol caliber market. Its toggle link system creates the smooth, linear cycling feel that helped make the platform a favorite in cowboy action competition. When properly run, the action does not feel like a small bolt being forced through a receiver. It feels like several fitted pieces moving together in one continuous stroke. That matters to shooters who value speed, rhythm, and low disruption between shots. Uberti's current .357 Magnum Trapper uses a 16.125-inch barrel, carries 9 rounds in the magazine plus 1 in the chamber, and has an official listed MSRP around $1,600. The surprising specification is its weight. Uberti lists the Trapper at approximately 8.2 pounds, which is heavy for a short .357 lever gun. That weight is not entirely negative. It settles the rifle, reduces movement, and makes full-power .357 ammunition exceptionally manageable. For a shooter working through a long-range session or running a competition stage, that mass can make the rifle feel calm and predictable. The problem appears when the rifle leaves the range. An 8-pound pistol-caliber carbine gives up one of the main reasons many people choose a .357 lever action in the first place. It is not especially light, it is not cheap, and the short barrel does not make the complete package as compact feeling as the number suggests. The Uberti also asks the buyer to accept 19th century ergonomics at a 21st century price. That is completely defensible for someone who values historical appearance, traditional wood and steel, and a competition-friendly action. It is harder to defend for the buyer who expects simple optic mounting, weather-resistant furniture sling attachments, or a rifle that can be treated like an ordinary ranch tool without worrying about the finish. This is not a bad rifle trapped at number 5. It is a specialized rifle being judged by a general-purpose filter. For cowboy action shooters, collectors, and anyone who considers the tactile experience part of the purchase, the Uberti could move much higher. For a buyer who wants one .357 lever gun to carry, hunt with, where legal, mount an optic on, and maintain without ceremony, it gives up too much practical value. Number 4 is the Browning B92 in .357 Magnum, a used market rifle that deserves attention for almost the opposite reason. The Uberti openly celebrates the past. The Browning B92 quietly refined it. Browning introduced the standard B92 in .44 Magnum in 1979, added the .357 Magnum version in 1982, and discontinued the model in 1987. That short production window is why many newer lever gun buyers have never handled one, and why clean examples often attract collectors as quickly as shooters. It is a close interpretation of the Winchester Model 1892, with a compact receiver, a tubular magazine, an exposed hammer, and the strong locking arrangement that made the 1892 pattern such a natural home for pistol cartridges. The Browning manual lists an 11-round magazine capacity, with the possibility of another cartridge in the chamber, although how a person stores or carries any firearm should follow the manual safe handling practices and applicable law rather than a capacity number on paper. The B92 also comes from an era before manufacturers felt obligated to add a separate tang safety or crossbolt safety to every exposed hammer lever gun. Its manual describes full cock, half cock, and fired hammer positions, and makes the handling responsibilities extremely clear. That simplicity is one of the rifle's attractions, but it also means a buyer must understand the design rather than treating the absence of an added safety as a marketing feature. The Browning's strength is not a rail-threaded muzzle forend or special finish. Its strength is that it represents a relatively clean, traditional 1892-style package with substantial magazine capacity and very little visual clutter. A good B92 can feel like the rifle people imagine when they say they want a classic .357 carbine. The reason it stops at number 4 is ownership reality. It has been out of production for nearly 4 decades. Condition matters more than the model name. Internal wear, damaged screws, altered sights, amateur action work, rust beneath the wood, and feeding problems can turn an apparently desirable rifle into an expensive project. Replacement parts and factory support cannot be treated like they would be on a current production Smith & Wesson or Winchester. Collector demand can also push the price beyond the point where it makes sense as a working rifle. The buyer may end up paying a premium for originality and then feeling unable to carry the rifle in bad weather or modify the sights. That is the hidden conflict with desirable discontinued guns. The qualities that make them worth owning can also discourage owners from using them. The B92 is therefore one of the strongest choices on this list for the experienced used gun buyer who understands inspection values, traditional operation, and finds a mechanically sound example at a rational price. It is a weaker recommendation for a first-time lever gun owner who needs a warranty, easy parts access, and a rifle that can be purchased in a known configuration. Its reputation may be excellent, but reputation cannot inspect a 30 or 40-year-old individual firearm for you. Number 3 is where the ranking moves from desirable rifles to designs that solve a distinct practical problem. The Chiappa 1892 Alaskan Takedown exists for the owner who does not want a lever gun to occupy the full length of a case vehicle compartment or gear space. The rifle separates into major sections for transport, allowing a 16-inch barreled .357 Magnum lever action to fit into spaces where a conventional rifle becomes awkward. Chiappa's official specification lists an 8-round capacity, a Skinner Peep rear sight steel construction, and a matte chrome finish. Taylor's & Company, which markets its own versions of the platform, lists the 16-inch .357 model at about 5.95 pounds and an MSRP approaching $1,900, depending on finish and configuration. That combination immediately explains both the rifle's appeal and its problem. It is short, relatively light, weather-oriented, and equipped with a sighting system more useful than the tiny traditional buckhorn sights many shooters struggle to see clearly. The peep sight keeps the sight picture simple. Textured wood and corrosion-resistant exterior treatment make more sense around wet equipment than highly polished bluing and exhibition-grade walnut. The rubber butt pad provides a more secure mounting surface than a crescent steel plate. None of those features is revolutionary individually. Together, they create one of the few 357 lever actions designed around transportation and environmental exposure rather than nostalgia. This is the rifle that makes sense for someone traveling by boat, ATV, small aircraft, or vehicle where secure, lawful storage space is limited. It also makes sense as a packable range or camp rifle when the owner understands that takedown describes transportation convenience, not permission to ignore secure storage or local transportation laws. The takedown feature carries a cost beyond money. Any firearm that repeatedly separates and reconnects relies on consistent engagement surfaces. A responsible owner should verify point-of-impact repeatability with the exact sight or optic arrangement instead of assuming the rifle will return to zero because a catalog says it is a takedown model. That is not an accusation against Chiappa. It is simply how precision should be treated whenever major components are separated. The other compromise is that the Alaskan's best features are valuable only to people who need them. A buyer who drives to a covered range, stores the rifle in a normal safe, and never carries it through wet country is paying a substantial premium for compact transport and exterior durability that may never matter. At close to $1,900, before adding an optic, sling case, ammunition, or transfer costs, the Chiappa enters a price class where excellent traditional rifles and highly equipped modern rifles become available. Its 1892 action remains compact and strong, but the rifle does not automatically shoot better because it costs more. It ranks third because it is the most purpose-built gun on the list. For the right owner, that purpose may justify every dollar. For the average owner, it is a brilliant solution to a problem they may not actually have. At the midpoint, the pattern should be obvious. None of these rifles is being defeated by the .357 Magnum cartridge. They are being separated by weight support, sighting options, price, and how often their special features will matter after the purchase excitement disappears. The top two are less exotic than the Chiappa and less collectible than the Browning. That is exactly why they rise. A general-purpose rifle becomes valuable through the number of ordinary days it works well, not through the single unusual day its most dramatic feature becomes useful. Number 2 is the current Winchester Model 1892 short rifle in .357 Magnum. This is one of the cleanest answers for a buyer who wants traditional proportions without accepting used market uncertainty. Winchester lists a 20-inch barrel, 10-round magazine, 6-pound weight, 37.5-inch overall length, black walnut furniture, a Marbles gold bead front sight, a buckhorn rear sight, and a tang safety. The top tang is drilled and tapped for an optional peep sight, but the receiver is not drilled and tapped for a conventional scope. The MSRP is approximately $1,279.99 at the time of writing, though actual dealer pricing and availability vary. Those specifications form a rifle that is almost perfectly balanced between carbine handling and full-length usefulness. 6 pounds is light enough to carry comfortably, but not so light that a .357 Magnum becomes unpleasant. The 20-inch barrel gives the shooter a longer sight radius and allows the full-length magazine to hold 10 rounds. The compact 1892 receiver keeps the rifle from feeling stretched or front-heavy. More importantly, Winchester has not tried to make the rifle satisfy every market at once. It does not wear an accessory rail, polymer furniture, M-lock slots, or a threaded muzzle. That restraint is a strength for the traditional buyer. It is also the exact reason it finishes second. The modern shooter who wants a low-mounted red dot conventional scope weapon light for lawful property use or muzzle accessory immediately encounters limitations. The top tang peep sight option is useful, but it is not equivalent to a receiver rail. The crescent metal butt plate looks correct and works acceptably with the mild recoil of a .357 rifle, yet it is less forgiving in unconventional shooting positions than a flat rubber pad. The rifle also lacks sling swivel studs in its listed configuration, meaning the owner may need to choose between keeping the rifle original and modifying it for field carry. Then there is the tang safety. Some buyers appreciate the additional mechanical control, others dislike the appearance and prefer the half-cock arrangement of older designs. Neither preference changes the rifle's actual quality, but it illustrates the problem modern manufacturers face when recreating historical firearms for current markets. The Winchester defeats the Uberti because it is roughly 2 pounds lighter, less expensive by official MSRP, and better aligned with general field carry. It defeats the Browning because it is current production with known specifications, rather than a used rifle whose condition must be evaluated individually. It defeats the Chiappa for most owners because it delivers the essential handling qualities of the 1892 action without charging for a takedown system and weather package. For the buyer who wants walnut steel, traditional lines, and a rifle that still feels like a working gun, the Winchester may actually be the best choice on this list. It does not take number one because the evaluation filter includes modern sighting unloading maintenance and configuration flexibility. Tradition is a legitimate priority, but it cannot be awarded points for features it intentionally excludes. Number 1 is the Smith Wesson Model 1854 in .357 Magnum, and it wins for a reason that will irritate some traditional lever gun owners. It treats the lever action as a current production rifle, rather than a historical object that manufacturers are afraid to alter. Smith & Wesson's standard synthetic stock .357 model uses a 19.25-inch threaded barrel, a side-loading gate, side ejection, a removable magazine tube, a Picatinny optics base, an adjustable ghost ring rear sight, a gold bead front sight, and M-LOK-compatible sections in the forend. Official specifications put overall length at approximately 36 inches, weight around 7 pounds, capacity at 10 rounds, and MSRP around $1,279 for the standard configuration. Walnut and Stealth Hunter variants are also offered at higher listed prices. The standard rifle is not the lightest gun here. It is not the smoothest competition action. It is not the most compact when disassembled, and it does not have the historical purity of the Winchester or Browning. What it does is remove the largest number of ownership obstacles without creating a specialized rifle. A buyer can use the supplied ghost ring sight and never add an optic. A buyer with aging eyes can install a red dot or low-power optic without inventing a mounting solution. Side ejection allows the optic to remain in a conventional position. The threaded muzzle creates options where lawful while the rifle remains fully usable without attaching anything. The removable magazine tube provides an unloading method that does not always require cycling every cartridge through the action, although the owner must still follow the manual and verify the chamber and magazine are empty. The synthetic furniture tolerates ordinary handling without making every scratch feel like financial damage. M-LOK slots permit useful accessories without forcing the entire rifle into an exaggerated tactical appearance. This is what an ownership system looks like. Each feature removes a small reason the rifle might remain in the safe. The sight can be adapted. The exterior is practical. The magazine can be managed more conveniently. Current production means the manufacturer still has a direct commercial interest in the platform. Multiple chamberings and configurations suggest the Model 1854 is not being treated as a one-season experiment. Those advantages do not make the rifle flawless. The Model 1854 is still relatively young compared with designs that have accumulated decades of repair knowledge, replacement parts, and field history. Buyers who distrust new platforms have a rational reason to choose the Winchester. The removable magazine tube is useful, but it also introduces another component that must be installed, maintained, and handled correctly. 7 pounds is reasonable, not exceptional, and the rifle is substantially heavier than the 6-pound Winchester. The cross-bolt safety will offend traditionalists. The polymer version will never create the emotional reaction of polished walnut and blued steel, and the official price remains far above entry-level Rossi territory. A buyer who only wants an inexpensive range carbine should not spend extra money merely because the Smith & Wesson has more mounting points. A cowboy action competitor may still prefer the Uberti's action and balance. A collector may choose the Browning without caring about warranty support. A traveler with severe space constraints may find the Chiappa's takedown system more valuable than every feature on the Smith & Wesson combined. The Model 1854 wins because it asks the fewest average buyers to become specialists. It does not require the owner to understand the collector market, accept competition rifle weight, solve an optics problem, or pay almost $1,900 for compact storage. It arrives as a capable, iron-sighted rifle and leaves room for the owner's needs to change. That adaptability matters more over 10 years than whichever rifle feels most exciting during the first 10 minutes at the gun counter. The larger lesson is not that the Smith & Wesson logo has replaced Henry Marlin or Winchester as the only correct answer. That would repeat the same mistake this list is trying to correct. The lesson is that a .357 lever gun should be selected as a complete ownership system. Ammunition compatibility matters. Sight visibility matters. A rifle's weight matters after 2 hours of carry, not while it rests on a glass counter. Manufacturer support matters when a small part fails years after the purchase. A threaded barrel is valuable only to the owner who can lawfully and practically use it. Historical authenticity is valuable only when the buyer genuinely cares about it. The strongest specification is often the one that encourages the owner to practice, maintain the rifle, and understand its limitations. For a traditionalist, the Winchester Model 1892 is the strongest alternative and may be the more satisfying purchase. For a modern general-purpose owner, the Smith & Wesson Model 1854 offers the most complete package. For the next decade, would you choose the adaptable Model 1854, the traditional Winchester 1892, the packable Chiappa Alaskan, the competition-oriented Uberti 1873, or the discontinued Browning B92? And what real job would that rifle have to perform? Explain the job, because without that part, the model name means almost nothing.